Hey everyone, welcome back. We're tackling a big one today, AMD and their position in the CPU market.
Yeah, it's a topic with a lot of angles, especially with these AI PCs and ARM processors popping up.
Right. It feels like we're at a real turning point. And to guide us through it all, we've got a former senior product manager from AMD, someone who's seen the inside of this world.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to dig into it.
So one thing that jumps out is how AMD's revenue has been kind of flat recently. And that's even with them taking some market share away from Intel. What gives?
You've put your finger on something important. Their client segment, which is where those everyday CPUs for laptops and desktops live, hasn't really exploded the way you might think it would. They're making progress, but it's not translating into a revenue boom.
So if AMD makes good CPUs, what's the holdup? Why aren't they running away with the market?
Think about it this way. You're at Best Buy. You need a new laptop. You see two options. One's got an AMD processor. The other's Intel. A lot of people, they just recognize that Intel name more. It's familiar.
Intel inside. It's practically a cultural thing at this point.
Exactly. And that familiarity, it means shelf space. Stores know that Intel-based stuff tends to fly off the shelves faster, so they stock more of it. They got to sell what people are buying. And for a lot of folks, that's Intel.
Makes sense from their end, but it's got to be tough for AMD to break through that.
Oh, absolutely. They might have the tech, the performance, sometimes even better features. But getting that regular person to believe AMD is just as good, even better, that's been an uphill battle.
And now you've got this whole new category emerging. AI PCs. How's that changing the game?
It's shaking things up, for sure. But here's the interesting thing. Right now, it's not really driven by your average consumer. Businesses, enterprises, those are the early adopters. They see how AI could boost productivity, and they're willing to pay a premium for it.
So we're talking top-of-the-line expensive machines, not something you just grab for casual browsing.
Not yet, anyway. Think more like a $2,000 laptop versus a $1,400 one. It's a jump. But give it time. As the tech gets cheaper, we'll see those AI PCs filter down to the everyday market.
Any guesses on how long that'll be? When will AI just be a normal part of any PC?
It's tough to say for sure, but if I had to bet, I'd say by 2025, we might be looking at AI PCs making up about 20% of the market.
That's a pretty big chunk, considering they're starting from basically nothing.
Right. And here's where it gets interesting for AMD. Even if they don't completely dominate that market, those higher prices for AI PCs could mean big bucks for them.
So potentially very profitable, but they're not the only ones who see that. We've also got ARM-based CPUs trying to get a foothold in the PC market. How do they fit into all of this?
ARM. They're an interesting piece of the puzzle. They'll definitely grab a slice of that AI PC pie, probably around 5% by the end of next year, I guess.
Seems kind of small given all the hype around ARM. What's holding them back?
Options, or rather the lack of them. Right now, you just don't have as many design choices with ARM-based PCs compared to the usual x86 architecture that AMD and Intel use. Like, imagine walking into a bakery and they've only got two types of bread.
Not a lot of variety. So even if ARM processors are super efficient, there's just not enough out there to make them mainstream.
Exactly. And then there's software. ARM processors, they need operating systems and programs specifically made for them. Microsoft Windows, the big dog in the room, it needs to fully support ARM if it's going to really take off.
So ARM's fate is kind of tied to Microsoft, like a tech partnership.
You got it. That said, ARM's got some big advantages that could help them grow a lot in the next few years. They're known for being power efficient, which means devices that last forever on a single charge. Like, imagine a laptop that goes for 2 whole days without needing to be plugged in. That's the kind of future ARM's promising.
That would be a game changer, especially for anyone who's constantly on the move.
No doubt. And if Microsoft goes all in on ARM, I could see their market share jumping up to 7%, maybe even 10% by 2025.
So it's a three-way race then. Intel, AMD, and ARM all going for the gold.
The competition's heating up, and honestly, that's great for everyone buying this stuff. More competition, more innovation, better products, and hopefully better prices.
Since we know you're interested in AMD specifically, let's dive into their strengths, the things they bring to the table that nobody else does in this CPU world.
One of the biggest things AMD's got going for them is their focus on the user's experience. They're not just about pure processing power. They're thinking about how to make their laptops run quieter, stay cooler, and last longer on battery.
Those are huge selling points for people. Nobody wants a laptop that sounds like a jet engine when they're trying to work.
Exactly. That's where AMD sets themselves apart. They're also making waves with these APUs they've got. For people who don't know, APU stands for Accelerated Processing Unit, and it's basically a CPU and a really good graphics processor all in one chip.
So it's like a two-for-one deal, which is great for space and efficiency. What kind of impact are those APUs having?
They're really strong in areas like gaming and video editing, anything that needs serious processing power and graphics capability. And don't forget, those big businesses that want a good balance between performance and efficiency APUs are a good fit there too.
It really seems like they're trying to deliver a complete package, not just chasing the highest numbers in a benchmark.
You got it. They're playing to their strengths, which could
No.
be a smart move in the long run. But just like any tech company, they've got their work cut out for them.
You mentioned before that brand recognition is something they're still working on. What else is holding them back?
One word: marketing. They've got the tech, it's impressive, but getting that message across to everyday people, that's something they haven't quite cracked. Intel, they've really built up that brand. It's like a wall AMD needs to break through.
So it's not enough to just be good. You got to make sure people know why they should care.
That's it. AMD needs a story, something that really connects with people. Gamers, YouTubers, even your average Joe who wants a laptop that just works. Those are the folks they need to reach.
How do they do that, though? What does good marketing even look like for AMD?
It's about focusing on what makes them different. Instead of just talking about gigahertz and nanometers, which just sounds like gibberish to most people, they got to show what that actually means. Like, picture a commercial where someone's using an AMD laptop all day, working, watching stuff, and the battery's still going strong.
Yeah. Paint a picture, not just a spec sheet.
Exactly. Appeal to how people feel, what they want. Show them how AMD fits into their life, whether it's gaming, creating content, or just having a computer that doesn't slow them down.
Makes sense. Anything else besides marketing where AMD could step it up?
Timing. Sometimes they're just a little slower than Intel at getting their newest stuff out there. And in tech, speed is everything.
So while AMD is busy perfecting something, Intel's already grabbed everyone's attention.
That's the risk, right? And then there's Intel's pricing. They can be aggressive, even if it means smaller profits for them, just to hold on to that market share. Makes it extra tough for AMD to gain ground.
Feels like AMD's walking a tightrope here, trying to balance innovation with, like, market strategy. Given all of that, what's next for AMD? What does the future look like?
The next year is going to be huge for them. There's a real chance for them to make some big moves, but they can't afford to mess up.
What should we be paying attention to specifically?
Their AI PC game, how well that AI 300 processor does, the one they're saying is a beast for AI, that's going to be under a microscope.
So everyone's watching that one chip closely.
It's a big deal, for sure. But it's not just about how fast it is. It's about their whole approach. The hardware, the software, making it all feel seamless. They need people to think AMD when they think AI, just like Intel has that Intel Inside thing locked down.
So it's got to be the whole package, the tech and the messaging all working together.
Absolutely. And don't forget, Intel's got their own problems. That whole pricing strategy, it might keep them on top for now, but it could backfire if it cuts into their profits too much.
You mentioned that earlier, how that could end up hurting them in the long run. Could that be AMD's chance to swoop in?
It's a possibility. AMD might find their winning formula by focusing on what they're already good at, like those power-sipping APUs for gamers and creative types, and just slowly chipping away at Intel's dominance in those specific areas.
So more targeted instead of trying to win everywhere at once.
Right. Play to your strengths, you know? Things change fast in tech. AMD doesn't need to become the next Intel to be successful. They can forge their own path, give people a great experience in the areas where they excel.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. Seriously, a lot to think about. As we wrap up this deep dive, any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are trying to make sense of where AMD fits into all of this?
Keep an eye on how AMD uses their strengths in gaming, content creation, and that whole power efficiency thing. Those are the areas where they can really shine.
So they've got these areas where they can really stand out. But how do they actually make that happen? What should AMD be doing to really own those spaces?
It goes back to telling a good story, right? Show people the real-world difference. Like, imagine a marketing campaign all about how AMD-powered laptops give gamers an advantage. Smoother gameplay, longer sessions before they need to find an outlet, or how video editors can render their projects way faster and get time back in their day.
It's less about the tech specs, more about what people are passionate about.
Exactly. Show, don't tell. And yeah, don't underestimate those quieter, cooler machines. People are worried about battery life and laptops overheating, so AMD focusing on that could be huge for them.
It's almost like they're solving a problem people didn't even realize they had.
That's a great way to put it. And those relationships with retailers, that's key too. AMD needs to get Best Buy and those guys on board, show them that AMD inside a laptop, that means happy customers.
Win over the people, win over the stores, it all kind of comes together.
Exactly. It's about making a strong case, proving that AMD deserves to be in the conversation, even if they don't completely take over.
This has been amazing, really insightful. We've covered a ton. AMD's revenue being flat, the challenges they face, the whole world of AI PCs, ARM processors entering the scene. It feels like AMD is at a pivotal moment, but with the right strategy, they could really shape the future of computing. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise. This has been invaluable.
Glad to be here. Always happy to talk about this stuff. It's an exciting time to be following CPUs, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, here's something to think about as you explore this more on your own. Could this whole shift towards AI PCs with their higher prices and the focus on efficiency, could that actually be a good thing for AMD? Could they come to dominate these new areas, carve out their own profitable space, even if they never quite catch Intel in the overall market share race? Something to ponder. As always, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those CPUs humming.